a carpenter who had been fired from a Midtown Manhattan construction job, fatally shot a foreman on the 37th floor of the building on Thursday and a short time later turned the gun on himself, the police said. The victim, Christopher Sayers, 37, of Plainview, Long Island, was shot multiple times, at least once in the head, with a 9mm semi-automatic handgun at 645 West 59th Street at 7:10 a.m., according Deputy Chief Christopher J. McCormack. The gunman fled to the 5th floor of the building, where he shot himself in the head and died, the police said. Police have not identified the gunman, but co-workers said he was Samuel Perry, 44, of Far Rockaway, Queens. A handgun was recovered next to his body, the police said. Right now we are understanding that he was fired 2 days ago, Chief McCormack said of Mr. Perry. Talking to some of the workers so far, they said he was a bit of a hothead. Amy Santini, an administrative assistant at Sorbara Construction Corporation, confirmed that Mr. Sayers was a foreman at the site and that Mr. Perry had recently been dismissed. Continue reading the main story. Police officers arrived on the scene after multiple 911 calls, unsure whether there was still an active gunman on the loose. They evacuated workers from the building, while others sheltered in place on the 39th floor. Robert Pagan, 42, a carpenter, said he heard the gunshots but thought it might have been a nail gun. He was heading up to the 37th floor to see what happened when he ran into Mr. Perry on the 33rd floor staircase. I just saw the shooter coming downstairs, very calm. I jokingly asked him if he brought a gun to the job because you're not supposed to be here, Mr. Pagan said. Mr. Pagan said he knew Mr. Perry had been fired. Mr. Pagan said Mr. Perry laughed and said he didn't have a gun. Mr. Pagan said he then hugged Mr. Perry and continued to the 37th floor, where he saw Mr. Sayers on the floor. I hugged the man who shot my friend, then I went upstairs and saw him laying on the ground, Mr. Pagan said. Newsletter sign up. Continue reading the main story. New York Today. Each morning, get the latest on New York businesses, arts, sports, dining, style and more. Enter your email address. Sign up. You agree to receive occasional updates and special offers for the New York Times products and services. See sample privacy policy. Opt out or contact us anytime. Dennis Greaves, another worker who knew both men, said Mr. Perry's wife had died 12 to 18 months ago. The police said Mr. Perry had been arrested at least 3 times in the past, including once for robbery. His last arrest was in 2005. Mr. Sayers was described as a good foreman. He's a quiet guy. He comes in the morning real early, drinks his coffee, smokes his cigarette, said Mr. Greaves. And then he went about his business. He never gives nobody a hard time. Never. Sean D. Shepard, 33, a carpenter, said Mr. Sayers was an amazing guy. He taught me so much. This is just so shocking and it hurts, she said. Chief McCormack said the police are still trying to determine how the gunman got inside the building. There are cameras on the 1st floor. The construction site is part of a $2.3 billion 3-tower development called Waterline Square. The nearly 5-acre site stretches from West 59th to West 61st Streets and from Riverside Boulevard to Freedom Place South. The buildings, which are expected to open next year, will contain 1,132 units and include amenities such as restaurants and an indoor tennis court. Chief McCormack said the shooting stemmed from a dispute between the two men. It was regarding respect of himself, he said of Mr. Perry. The workers, wearing dusty and paint-splattered clothes, hugged one another as they headed home on Thursday. Mr. Greaves, a construction worker for 30 years, said such disputes usually blow over. Everybody gets mad in the heat of the job, but that doesn't give you the right to kill somebody, he said. I don't know why he killed this guy.